They ripped her daughter from her arms just because she was black. But what her mother did next froze the entire world, and her name would never be forgotten. Rain fell like shards of glass against the cracked pavement. Amara Johnson wrapped her thin coat tighter around herself, shivering in the cold night. Beside her, her 6-year-old daughter, Amaya, tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, are we late?" she whispered, voice trembling. Amara forced a smile, though her chest ached. "Not late, baby. We're just waiting for a little while. Okay." The hospital doors loomed ahead, white and sterile, glowing against the dark sky. Inside, she had hoped for care, a simple exam, some reassurance that Amaya's persistent cough wasn't serious. But now, after hours of waiting, she knew the truth. No one here saw them as human. A nurse finally appeared, clipboard in hand. Her eyes flicked over Amaya, and then back at Amara, narrowed with subtle disdain. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice tight. "Yes, my daughter," Amara began. "She's been coughing up blood. She's had a fever for days. Please, just to check up." The nurse sighed, cutting her off. "Sit over there. Someone will see her, eventually." Amara's heart pounded. She glanced at Amaya, whose small body shivered from both cold and fear. Hours passed. The lobby emptied and refilled with patients who were quickly ushered in. White children with minor scrapes, their parents barely needing to ask. Yet for her and Amaya, the minutes stretched into eternity. Then the words came. A whisper, but sharp, cutting deep. "They can't let that child stay with her. It's not safe." Amara froze. Safe? Safe from what? Her mind raced, disbelief clashing with panic. Before she could respond, 2 men in security uniforms approached. "Ma'am," one said, voice calm but firm, "we've received reports about your living situation. We need to take your daughter into protective care." "No, you can't." Amara's voice cracked. "She's my daughter. She's all I have. Please, just let me." But the doors opened, and Amaya's tiny frame was pulled from her arms. "Mommy," she screamed, reaching, kicking, crying. Amara lunged, fingers grasping at the air where she had been moments ago. She fell to her knees, drenched in rain, clutching the wet pavement, her tears indistinguishable from the storm. "Please, anyone, help!" she shouted. But the hospital lobby was empty now. No one intervened. No one saw her grief. Outside, the wind shredded her voice. She collapsed in the mud, gasping, trembling. She watched the police car pull away with Amaya inside, the red taillights fading into the night. Through the storm, a whispered vow escaped her lips, almost drowned by the rain. "They will regret this. I swear, they will regret this." That night, Amara sat in her small apartment, soaking wet and broken. Her heart ached with helplessness, but beneath the despair burned a single, unrelenting thought. She would not let this injustice stand. Somewhere deep in her chest, a spark ignited. A spark that promised one thing: she would fight. And when she did, everyone who thought she was powerless would see just how wrong they were. The next morning, Amara receives a thick envelope slid under her door. Inside are documents she wasn't supposed to see. Records showing Amaya wasn't the first child they took, and the system protecting them was far bigger and more dangerous than she ever imagined. Amara awoke to the harsh light of dawn filtering through her cracked blinds. Her body ached from the rain-soaked night before, but exhaustion was nothing compared to the weight pressing on her chest. Amaya was gone, taken, and with her, every ounce of normalcy in her life. Sliding the envelope from under the door, she hesitated before opening it. Inside were pages and pages of legal documents, court filings, and notes that made her stomach turn. Other children, black, poor, defenseless, had been taken from their families in the same way, all placed in safer environments, according to official records. Amara read each line with disbelief, anger simmering under her skin. The system was rigged. Every form, every signature, every rubber-stamped order screamed the same message. They could do this to anyone who looked like her, and no one would stop them. She had to see her daughter. She had to know Amaya was safe, or at least still alive. At the child placement office, she was met with the same smirks, the same condescending tones. A social worker named Mrs. Carter, polished and sharp in her tailored suit, smiled politely, though her eyes never softened. "Ms. Johnson," she said, flipping through her clipboard, Your visits are suspended until further notice. You have not met the conditions of reunification. Perhaps if you could provide adequate housing and income." Amara felt rage bubbling, her pulse hammering in her ears. "She's my daughter. She needs me. You have no right." Mrs. Carter's smile tightened. "We have every right. Now please step aside." Frustrated and desperate, Amara left the office and wandered the city streets. She noticed affluent families strolling past, white children laughing, safe in their privilege. Her heart ached for Amaya, and for every child like her. That evening, she met Marcus, a young journalist with sharp eyes and a quiet intensity. He approached her outside a courthouse where she had been pleading with clerks. "You're Amara Johnson?" he asked. "I've been following cases like yours. Children taken under false pretenses. I can help." Amara's lips trembled. "Help? How?" He slid a folder across the cold pavement. Inside were photos, financial ledgers, and witness statements. Proof of corruption in the foster system. Foster parents accepting bribes. Social workers falsifying reports. Children hidden, silenced, mistreated. "They think you're alone," Marcus said. "But if we expose this, people will have to listen." Amara's eyes burned as she glanced at the photo of Amaya. She looked small, frightened, yet clutching a stuffed bear, still a child trying to stay brave. "Where do we start?" she asked, determination hardening her voice. The first step was infiltration. Marcus and Amara planned to sneak into the foster home that held Amaya. She would see her daughter, make sure she was alive, and gather proof of what was really happening behind those doors. Night fell. Amara crept along the hedges outside the white, lavish house. Lights glowed through the windows, and she could see children quietly sitting on the floor, some huddled, some silently playing. Her heart clenched as she spotted Amaya asleep on a small bed, clutching the same bear her mother had given her. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. A shadow moved behind her. A man's voice hissed, "What are you doing here?" She froze. Fear and adrenaline collided. Was this the foster father? Or worse, a hired guard? Amara knew she couldn't run. She couldn't fail Amaya now. As the man stepped closer, she realized the only way to save her daughter would be to risk everything. Her freedom, her life, and her future. She drew a shaky breath and whispered, "I will not leave without her." The night air stung Amara's face as she crouched in the shadows, heart hammering. Amaya slept just a few feet away, unaware of the danger lurking. Every step, every breath she took, could betray her presence. The shadow from earlier had vanished, or so she hoped. Marcus crouched beside her, whispering, "We have to be quick. Security rotates every 20 minutes. One mistake, and it's over." Amara nodded, hands trembling. She could feel Amaya's tiny heartbeat in her memory, hear her cough from the day they took her. That memory fueled her. She wasn't leaving without her. They slipped inside a side door that had been left ajar. The interior smelled of disinfectant and fear. Amara's eyes darted around. Other children lay huddled on cots, faces pale, some bruised, some silent in terror. Her stomach churned. "Don't touch anything," Marcus whispered. "We only need proof. Cameras, documents, anything to show them the truth." Amara nodded, though her maternal instinct screamed at her to scoop up every child and run. They reached Amaya's room. Relief and terror collided as she saw her asleep, still clutching the bear. She crept closer, whispering, "Amaya, it's Mommy." She stirred, eyes fluttering open. For a brief moment, panic and confusion crossed her small face. Then recognition. "Mommy," she whispered, voice quivering. "Yes, baby. Mommy's here. I'm not leaving you." Before she could hug her, the door burst open. Mrs. Carter, the social worker who had orchestrated this nightmare, stepped in, face twisted with contempt. "You again?" she spat. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? Trespassing is a crime. You'll ruin everything." Amara squared her shoulders, feeling a fire she hadn't known she possessed. "I'm done waiting. I'm done obeying a system that treats my daughter like she's disposable. I will not leave without her." Mrs. Carter's lips curled into a cruel smile. "You think the world cares about your struggles? You're nothing. No one will help you." But just as Amara felt the weight of despair pressing down, Marcus appeared with hidden cameras rolling, documenting everything. He had already contacted the press. Within minutes, the video would be live to thousands. Amara didn't falter. She picked up Amaya, holding her close. "You can try to stop me," she said, voice firm, "but the world will see the truth, and justice will be mine." The chaos escalated. Security guards rushed in, but by now, the press livestream had millions watching. The public outcry erupted instantly. Social media lit up with hashtags demanding Amaya's safe return. People called for reform. People called for justice. Amaya clung to her mother, tears streaking her cheeks. "They heard us when we cried," she whispered. Amara's heart ached but strengthened. She knelt, holding her daughter's face. "Not anymore, baby. Not anymore. Mommy's got you." The night was a storm of sirens, shouts, and flashing cameras. Amara's plan was risky, but it worked. By dawn, the authorities could not ignore the public eye. Mrs. Carter and her accomplices were forced to retreat, their power crumbling under scrutiny. Just as Amara thought they were safe, a phone call shattered the fragile sense of victory. Marcus had been ambushed, files stolen, evidence threatened. Amara realized the fight wasn't over. The system was bigger than one rescue, and corruption ran deep. But she felt something unshakable, a fire in her veins, a determination that no threat could extinguish. "I will finish this," she whispered to Amaya, who held her hand tightly. "No one will take you again. No one will get away with this." With the stolen evidence and the corrupt officials aware she was coming for them, Amara knew the next day would change everything. She had to face the courtroom, face power itself, and either win or risk losing Amaya forever. The courthouse steps were crowded, the air thick with anticipation. News crews swarmed like bees, cameras flashing as Amara clutched Amaya's hand, holding her close. Months of fear, nights of tears, and endless struggle had led to this moment. Inside, the courtroom was silent except for the shuffling of papers. Judge Thompson presided with a look of detached authority, but even he couldn't ignore the tension crackling through the room. Across from Amara sat Mrs. Carter and the foster father, their expressions tight, knowing the tide was turning. Marcus leaned over to Amara, whispering, "They've been exposed. The world is watching. You're not alone." Amara took a deep breath. "I never was," she said, gripping Amaya's hand tighter. When the session began, Amara's evidence was laid bare. Hidden camera footage, witness testimonies from other children, and the ledgers showing illicit payments to take children from black families. The room gasped as the horrors of the system were revealed. Children confined, silenced, and treated like commodities. Judge Thompson's gavel barely landed when the first witnesses spoke. A young girl's shaky voice recounted abuse in foster care. A boy's bruised arms were shown on camera. And then came Amaya. She was hesitant at first, clutching the bear her mother had given her. But with Amara kneeling beside her, whispering encouragement, she spoke. "They said my mommy didn't want me. They said I wasn't safe with her. But she came. She never left. She fought for me. I love my mommy." The courtroom fell silent, breaths held, eyes moist. Even the most stoic officials could not hide their unease. Mrs. Carter's face twisted with fury, but the evidence was undeniable. Marcus live-streamed every moment, and viewers worldwide were witnessing the injustice firsthand. Social media exploded, hashtags trending globally, and protests began forming outside the courthouse. Amara's voice rang clear when she addressed the court. "They tried to take my daughter because of the color of our skin. They tried to silence me, to make me powerless. But I am not powerless. I am a mother, and my daughter is my heart. This ends today, not just for us, but for every child they have tried to steal." Hours passed. Testimonies, cross-examinations, and mounting public pressure pushed the system to the edge. Finally, the judge leaned forward, gavel raised. "Given the overwhelming evidence and public outcry, I find the defendants guilty. Custody of Amaya Johnson is returned to her mother, Amara Johnson, effective immediately. All corrupt officials involved will face full prosecution." Relief crashed over Amara, uncontainable. She scooped Amaya into her arms, tears streaming, their embrace radiating joy and triumph. Outside, the crowd cheered, journalists snapped photographs, and the story spread worldwide. Weeks later, reforms were passed to protect families from the corrupt foster practices, with Amara's fight cited as a pivotal catalyst. A memorial scholarship in her name was established to support children who had been removed unjustly from their homes. Years later, Amaya, now a teenager, stood beside her mother at a rally. Her voice was steady, proud, and inspiring. My mother taught me that courage isn't about never being scared. Courage is about standing up even when the world is against you. She showed me that love can fight injustice. Because of her, no one will ever take a child like I was taken. Amara held her shoulder, heart swelling. She knew their battle had created change far beyond just their family. Their story was a symbol of hope, courage, and justice. A legacy built from the courage of a mother who refused to give up. As they walked away from the rally, Amaya's small hand in hers, though now larger than before, Amara whispered, "We did it, baby. We did it." And for the first time since that rain-soaked night, she felt the storm lift. One act of courage, even against impossible odds, can topple injustice and inspire generations. Love and determination can rewrite history. If this story gave you chills, tell us what you would do if it were your child. Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe and stay with Black Nation Strength for more powerful stories that will shock and inspire you.